The year is 1969. A young Pittsburgh Steeler, barely one season into his NFL career, is lying in a Vietnam rice paddy, bleeding from a gunshot wound. Moments later, a grenade explodes near his leg. The doctors say his football dream is over. In fact, they aren't even sure he'll ever walk without pain again. But this isn't the end of Rocky Bleier's story. It's the beginning. Just a few years later, the same man who nearly lost his leg on the battlefield would step onto another battlefield, the NFL gridiron, and carve his name into history. He wouldn't just return to football. He would help power the Pittsburgh Steelers to 4 Super Bowl championships. This is not just the story of an athlete. It is the story of a warrior, a survivor, and a legend whose journey defied every odd stacked against him. Welcome to Black and Gold Legacy, where we honor the triumphs, heartbreaks, and unforgettable legends of Steelers history. If you bleed black and gold, make sure to like this video, share it with Steelers Nation, and subscribe so you never miss another story. Today, we bring you one of the most inspiring comebacks in NFL history. The Steelers legend who survived war to win 4 Super Bowls, the Rocky Bleier story. Early life, growing up tough in Wisconsin. Rocky Bleier's story begins on March 5, 1946, in Appleton, Wisconsin. He wasn't born into fame or fortune. His parents, Bob and Ellen, ran a tavern in town, a small neighborhood bar where hard-working men came after long shifts to share drinks and stories. Rocky grew up in that tavern. He learned early what toughness looked like. Tired men with calloused hands, family struggling to get by, and a father who worked hard to provide. The bar became his classroom, and in that classroom, Rocky picked up lessons about resilience, loyalty, and grit that would carry him for the rest of his life. As a boy, Rocky wasn't the biggest or fastest kid in the neighborhood, but he carried himself with a confidence that stood out. Teachers noticed it. Coaches noticed it. He had something rare, a determination that refused to break. At Xavier High School, Rocky blossomed into a multi-sport athlete. He ran track, played basketball, and of course, football. On the football field, he wasn't flashy. He didn't wow you with 80-yard runs, but he was dependable. He was the player you trusted on 3rd and short, the player who could block, catch, or grind out tough yards. That kind of all-around toughness caught the eye of college scouts. By his senior year, Rocky had earned a scholarship to play for one of the most storied programs in college football, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. College career at Notre Dame, earning respect the hard way. At Notre Dame, Rocky faced a new challenge. The competition was bigger, stronger, faster. Many players were destined for the NFL, but instead of being intimidated, Rocky embraced the grind. Standing at just 5 feet 11 inches and around 200 pounds, he didn't look like a future pro running back. What set him apart was his willingness to do everything. Need someone to block a blitzing linebacker? Rocky was there. Need someone to catch a pass out of the backfield? Rocky made the grab. Need someone to run straight into the teeth of a defense? Rocky lowered his shoulder. Coaches came to love him for his reliability and toughness. Teammates admired his quiet leadership. By his senior year, in 1967, Rocky was named team captain. Not because he was the star, but because he was the heart of the team. One of his proudest moments came in 1966, when Notre Dame went undefeated and claimed a national championship. Rocky wasn't the headline name in the papers, but his fingerprints were all over the success of that team. He was the steady force, the one who did the little things right. When the 1968 NFL draft came around, Rocky didn't expect to go high. Scouts labeled him as too small, too average. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, then a struggling franchise searching for gritty players, saw something in him. They took him in the 16th round, picked 417 overall. For most players, being drafted that late meant almost no chance of making the team. But for Rocky Bleier, just hearing his name called was enough. He had always beaten the odds. And now, he was heading to Pittsburgh with a dream of playing professional football. What he didn't know was that his journey would take him far from Pittsburgh, into a battlefield half a world away. Vietnam War, a different battlefield. By the end of his rookie season in 1968, Rocky Bleier was living his dream. He had made the Pittsburgh Steelers roster, a long-shot 16th-round pick, who fought his way onto an NFL field. For a kid from Appleton, Wisconsin. That was already a victory. But in the summer of 1969, just as he was preparing for his second season, life threw him a curveball he never saw coming. The envelope came in the mail. Greetings. You are hereby ordered for induction into the Armed Forces of the United States. Rocky Bleier was drafted again, not by the NFL, but by the U.S. Army, into the jungle. Within months, Rocky found himself thousands of miles from Pittsburgh, in the sweltering jungles of Vietnam. No stadium lights, no cheering fans, just mud, heat, and the constant fear of enemy fire. He was assigned to an infantry platoon, patrolling dangerous terrain. Every day was survival. Every sound in the trees could be an ambush. For many soldiers, this was a nightmare. For Rocky, it was just another test of his toughness. Only this time, the stakes weren't a first down. They were life and death. The ambush, the moment that changed everything. On August 20th, 1969, Rocky's platoon was on patrol when all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from the tree line. Chaos exploded around him. As Rocky returned fire, a bullet tore into his left thigh, dropping him to the ground. Before he could recover, an enemy grenade landed nearby and detonated. Shrapnel ripped into his right leg and foot. The pain was blinding. The air filled with smoke and screams. Rocky was bleeding out, unable to move. In that moment, the NFL felt like a distant memory, if he even lived to see tomorrow. Doctor's verdict: you'll never play again. Rocky was evacuated to a field hospital, then flown back to the United States. When he finally woke up, doctors gave him the brutal truth. He had nerve damage. His right foot was mangled by shrapnel. Walking without a limp would be a victory. Running again? Impossible. Playing football? Out of the question. For most people, that would have been the end. The obituary of a promising football career. But Rocky Bleier wasn't most people. A letter from Art Rooney. During his recovery, Rocky received a letter. It was from Art Rooney Sr., the beloved owner of the Steelers. The Chief's words were simple, but powerful. Rocky, we're still behind you. We're looking forward to your return. That letter changed everything. It reminded Rocky that someone still believed in him, that football wasn't over unless he decided it was. It became the spark he needed to fight. And so began one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. The long road back, fighting the impossible. When Rocky Bleier returned home from Vietnam in 1970, he was a shadow of the athlete who once carried the ball for Notre Dame and the Steelers. His body had been ravaged by war. The gunshot wound to his left thigh had weakened his leg muscles. The grenade shrapnel in his right foot left permanent nerve damage. He weighed just 180 pounds, nearly 30 pounds lighter than his playing weight. His right leg was so weak he could barely stand on his toes. Doctors looked at him and said flatly, "Football is over. You'll never play again." But Rocky wasn't wired to accept that. Back to training camp. Against all odds, Rocky reported to the 1970 Steelers training camp. He hobbled through drills. He couldn't cut sharply, couldn't explode off the line. Teammates admired his courage, but coaches weren't convinced. At one point, Pittsburgh even released him. For most players, that would have been the final chapter. But Rocky didn't give up. He rehabbed every day. He lifted weights. He worked on his balance. He ran until his legs burned. In private moments, he admitted to himself it felt impossible. The pain never went away. His foot was numb in places. Every step was a reminder of the grenade. But he kept pushing. Support from the Steelers family. One of the turning points came not on the field, but in the locker room. Players like Andy Russell, Franco Harris, and even head coach Chuck Noll began to see something in Rocky. He wasn't just another player fighting for a roster spot. He was fighting for his life back. And when you fight that hard, it's contagious. His determination inspired his teammates. Slowly, the Steelers began to realize this man wasn't just coming back. He might actually contribute. Finally breaking through. By 1972, Rocky had worked his way back onto the Steelers roster. He wasn't a starter yet, but he was back in uniform, back in the huddle, back where doctors swore he'd never be again. That same year, history was made in Pittsburgh with the immaculate reception, Franco Harris's legendary play that put the Steelers on the NFL map. And standing on the sideline, wearing number 20, was Rocky Bleier, proof that miracles weren't just happening on the field, but within the Steelers' locker room too. Becoming Franco's partner. In 1974, Rocky fully reclaimed his role. While Franco Harris was the superstar running back, Rocky became his perfect partner. Franco was the flash, the explosive runner. Rocky was the grinder, the blocker, the unsung hero who opened holes and did the dirty work that made the Steelers' offense thrive. Together, they formed one of the most balanced backfields in NFL history. Defenses couldn't key on Franco alone because Rocky was just as capable of pounding the ball between the tackles or sneaking out for a clutch reception. Rocky Bleier wasn't just back. He was essential. And soon, he would become a 4-time Super Bowl champion. The Dynasty years, building a champion. By the mid-1970s, the Pittsburgh Steelers were transforming from perennial underdogs into one of the NFL's most feared dynasties. With Terry Bradshaw commanding the offense, Franco Harris running with power, and the steel curtain defense smothering opponents, the black and gold were rewriting the history of professional football. And at the heart of this machine was Rocky Bleier. Rocky wasn't the kind of player who dominated highlight reels. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the flashiest. But he was the glue. Every great dynasty has unsung heroes who do the little things right. The things that don't make headlines, but win championships. For the Steelers, that was Rocky Bleier. He was the running back who would stay in to pick up a blitz when Bradshaw needed time to throw. He was the fullback who would sacrifice his body to spring Franco Harris for a 20-yard run. And when the moment called for it, Rocky carried the ball himself, pounding defenders, wearing down defenses, moving the chains. Super Bowl glory, 4 rings. The Steelers' rise was meteoric. Between 1974 and 1979, Pittsburgh won 4 Super Bowls in just 6 seasons. Super Bowl IX, 1975, Rocky earned his first ring as Pittsburgh defeated the Minnesota Vikings. Super Bowl X, 1976, the Steelers toppled the Dallas Cowboys, with Rocky providing crucial blocking to keep the offense balanced. Super Bowl XIII, 1979, this would become Rocky's crowning moment. Super Bowl XIV, 1980, the Steelers cemented their dynasty with their 4th championship. Rocky's contributions weren't always in the spotlight, but ask his teammates, and they'll tell you. Without him, those rings don't all happen. Super Bowl XIII, Rocky's defining moment. For Rocky Bleier, Super Bowl XIII against the Dallas Cowboys was more than just another game. It was destiny. In a matchup filled with Hall of Famers Bradshaw, Harris, Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, it was Rocky who had one of the best performances of his career. He rushed for over 100 yards and scored a critical touchdown that swung momentum in Pittsburgh's favor. Every carry was a statement. Every yard was a reminder of how far he had come since lying in a Vietnam rice paddy, bleeding and broken. That night, as the Steelers won 35-31 in one of the most thrilling Super Bowls ever played, Rocky Bleier wasn't just a champion. He was a living miracle. From being told he'd never walk again to rushing for 100 yards on the NFL's biggest stage, his story became one of the greatest comebacks in all of sports. The silent hero. Even in those glory years, Rocky never sought the spotlight. Reporters wanted quotes from Bradshaw, Franco, or Swann. Rocky was content to let his play speak for itself. But inside the locker room, teammates knew the truth. Rocky Bleier was the heartbeat of the team. His courage, toughness, and selflessness defined what it meant to wear black and gold. He was proof that greatness isn't always about headlines. Sometimes it's about sacrifice, resilience, and being there when your team needs you most. Retirement and legacy. More than a football player. By the time Rocky Bleier retired after the 1980 season, he had cemented himself not just as a football player, but as one of the most inspiring figures in NFL history. His final stat line was modest compared to superstars. 3,865 rushing yards, 23 rushing touchdowns, and 136 receptions. But numbers alone can't capture his impact. Rocky's legacy was never about the stats. It was about what he represented: courage, perseverance, and the spirit of Pittsburgh. He walked away from the game with 4 Super Bowl rings, each one a testament to his resilience. From being told he would never walk again, to hoisting the Lombardi Trophy 4 times. It was the ultimate story of fighting back. Life after football. After retiring, Rocky Bleier turned his pain, triumph, and experience into a mission to inspire others. He became a motivational speaker, traveling across the country to share his story of survival and determination. His message was simple but powerful. Never let others define your limits. In 1975, he co-authored his autobiography, Fighting Back, which chronicled his journey from the battlefields of Vietnam to the Super Bowls of the NFL. The book later inspired a made-for-TV movie of the same name, introducing his story to an even wider audience. Beyond football, Rocky also dedicated time to charitable work, supporting veterans organizations and causes that help young athletes chase their dreams. A legacy that lives on. Today, Rocky Bleier is remembered not just as a Steeler, but as a symbol of resilience. His story stands as one of the greatest comebacks in all of sports, a tale that still inspires players, fans, and soldiers alike. In Pittsburgh, he remains beloved. Fans still recall the sight of him running behind Franco Harris, grinding for yards, blocking fearlessly, and proving that no obstacle, not even war, could keep him down. Rocky's name may not always be mentioned first in conversations about Steelers legends, but ask the ones who lived it. Ask the ones who wore the black and gold with him, and they'll tell you. His heart was second to none. He wasn't just a football hero. He was a warrior, a survivor, a champion. They said he'd never play again. They said the war had taken too much. But Rocky Bleier proved them all wrong. From a rice paddy in Vietnam to the bright lights of 4 Super Bowls, his journey was more than football. It was about heart, resilience, and the unbreakable will of a man who refused to quit. Rocky Bleier wasn't just a Steeler. He wasn't just a Super Bowl champion. He was, and always will be, a symbol of what it means to fight back against impossible odds. This has been Black and Gold Legacy, where we honor the legends, heartbreaks, and unforgettable stories of Steelers history. If Rocky Bleier's story inspired you, don't forget to like this video, share it with Steelers Nation, and subscribe so you never miss another chapter of the Black and Gold. And now we turn to you. Where does Rocky Bleier's comeback rank among the greatest in NFL history? Let us know in the comments below.